Sattva Guna, the mode of goodness to maintain the universe. Lord Brahma is born from the Mahatattva. Brahma creates the entire universe, Lord Vishnu maintains it, and Lord Shiva annihilates it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls all the most important demigods, especially Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, exactly as the owner of a bird controls it by binding it with a rope. Sometimes vultures are controlled in this way. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshitarine Vancha Kalpataro Vishna Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Varatushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamham Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwara Hare Krishna. So we are discussing from Canto 5, Chapter 17, and we had discussed previously the descent of the river Ganges. And now further we are discussing the prayers by Lord Shiva. So these prayers are in continuation, which Lord Shiva has been giving the different sort of praying in different ways to Lord Sankarshan, who is his Ishtadev. And here he speaks about another prayer in glorification of the Supreme Lord. So here we see that how the description is given of the creation. This Prabhupada writes in the purport, description of how creation happens from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how different demigods, different species or different personalities are created from the Supreme Lord. So we know how the creation happens. Initially the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he expands as Balram, and then from Balram the Adi Chaturvya expansion that happens. That is 4 personalities: Vasudev, Pradyum, Anirudh and Sankarshan. And from Sankarshan again Narayan, Sankarshan expands into Narayan. From Narayan again the Dvitiya Chaturvya expansion that happens. Again these 4 personalities: Pradyumna, Anirudh, Sankarshan and Vasudev. And finally that is given here. After that they expand into Sankarshan. It is mentioned that Sankarshan expands into Mahavishnu. From Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and further on it continues. So basically here the summary of the creation is given, and one very important point is mentioned, that how all this creation happens. From Garbhodakshai Vishnu we know Lord Brahma is born, who is incarnation of the mode we call the incarnation of the mode of passion. And then from Brahma Rudra is born, Lord Shiva is born, and all these great personalities, they are created in order in subsequent creations. And finally we know, we have discussed in the creation part, how from them the further personalities are created, all the different demigods, the Prajapatis, who fill the entire world with the population, and finally the living entities are also created. And here one very important point to understand, that all these entities who are there, be it the demigods, be it the great personalities, or whoever is created in this entire creation, everything is controlled by the energy of the Supreme Lord. And a very amazing graphic example is given, like birds bound by a rope. Just like birds bound by a rope, everything, every creation, or all the personalities that are there in this world, they are also controlled by the energy of the Supreme Lord. And finally, the last point that is mentioned in the translation is, only by the Lord's grace, so here Lord Shiva is saying this, only by the Lord's grace can we create, maintain and annihilate the material world. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Being. So Lord Shiva is also telling himself, he is saying this, that only by the grace of the Lord. Sometimes it says that we say this, Brahma is responsible for the creation. Like they speak about the three murtis, that Brahma is responsible for creation, Vishnu for the maintenance, and Lord Shiva for destruction. But here we understand actually it's Lord Krishna or Lord in the form of Vishnu who does everything. Who is the creator, who is the maintainer, and who is the annihilator. And even when these people, they have those parts, or Brahma does the Visarga or the subsequent secondary creation, that is also happening by the will of the Supreme Lord. So in the Gita also we have understood, we have read those shlokas, Bhumerapo, Analo, Vayu, Khammano, Buddhir, Evacha, that how all the material elements that are there, earth, water, fire, air and ether, the gross elements, and then the subtle elements that are there, mind, intelligence and ego. And then the next shloka says, even we, the spirit soul which is there. All of us are creations of the Supreme Lord. All those elements are subsequent creations or one creation of the Supreme Lord which is inferior. And the living entities are the superior creations of the Supreme Lord. But ultimately the point that is mentioned is that all the entities that are there, they are ultimately creations of the Supreme Lord. So now this description that is there, this is very graphic. Like if you tell someone who is a devotee of, or so-called devotee of Lord Shiva or someone, and they tell that everyone is bound by a rope to Lord Krishna, or Lord Krishna controls everyone, and Prabhupada in the purport gives the example of vultures. Now vultures are very ferocious animals, so they have to be controlled by chains, or they have to be controlled by ropes. And here Prabhupada is telling, or here the meaning that is given is, similar to vultures, even the demigods are controlled by the Lord. So this is a point to understand how we can understand that all the living entities are controlled by the Supreme Lord. So one very amazing pastime comes, which we had discussed previously also. This comes in the Krishna Leela, when Balram was there. So we know one of the sons of Lord Krishna, his name was Samba. And he goes to Duryodhana's daughter, whose name was Lakshmana. So Samba goes and kidnaps the daughter of Duryodhana, kidnaps Lakshmana and takes her and marries her. Now when the Kurus come to know this, that Samba has done this activity, all of them, all the military forces, Karna, Duryodhana, all of them go together. They attack Samba, and though it was a very great struggle, they had to struggle a lot because Samba was a very, very great fighter. After all, he was the son of Lord Krishna. But then all of them together tied Samba and they kept him in prison. Now when the Yadavas come to know this, all of the Yadavas, they were very, very angry. They decided that they'll wage a war against the Kauravas. And that time Balram, he acts as a mediator. He says that, okay, let me talk to them, let me just create peace within us, and let me go there and settle peace so that no war happens or war is not waged. So that time one very amazing thing happens. When Balram goes there, initially all the Kauravas, they blaspheme him. First they receive him nicely, but when he tells his intention that you should release Samba and you should not have done this, that time they blaspheme him like anything. That time they blaspheme him, and that time they even blaspheme the Supreme Lord. Or Duryodhana and others, they even minimize the position of the Supreme Lord, that what do these people think? Who are these people? They're just living on our energy. We are the ones who are the rulers of the entire creation, rulers of the world. And these Yadus, they think so much that they are ordering us. And that time Balram speaks a very amazing shloka. Balram speaks this, Yasyangri pankaja rajo khila lokapale Mauli uttamer dhitam upasita tirtha tirtham Brahma bhavo ham api yasya kala kalaya Shrish chodvahema chiramasya nipasanam kwa. So he speaks, he's telling that when the Kauravas, they had blasphemed like that, and they were saying that how is Lord Krishna not even fit to rule the world, or not even fit to sit on the throne. So that time Balram speaks about this, that the dust of the lotus feet of Supreme Lord, or the dust of the lotus feet of Krishna, that is held by even the Lokapala, or the entire different universes that are there, and the Lokpala, the masters of those universes that are there. Even they hold the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord on their head. That dust is so sacred that when Lord Krishna steps in some place, that place becomes auspicious. Even tirthas or holy place become more auspicious by the presence of the Supreme Lord, or by his auspicious glance there. Even Kunti Maharani says that just by the glance of the Supreme Lord, the entire place or the Hastinapur became very auspicious. So that Supreme Lord, just by his presence, the place become auspicious. And Balram is telling that even Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lakshmi ji, and even I are creations or expansions of his expansions. We have expanded from him, and we ourselves carry the dust of his lotus feet on our head. So here Balram is explaining or telling about the position of the Supreme Lord. He is telling that he is that great personality from whom everything emanates, or everything is expanded, and everyone carries the dust of his lotus feet on their head. And then he says, Asya Nipasanam Ko, that what is the value of this small throne to Lord Krishna? Lord Krishna is the ruler of the entire world, who is the one who created this entire world, who is the creator of everyone, including himself. And they are saying that he is not fit to rule this kingdom. So Balram here tells that what is the value of this small throne to Lord Krishna, who is the creator of the entire creation. And same thing we see in this verse also. That how he is the one who is created, and everyone is bound by a rope to his orders. Or the rules and regulations he has created in this world, even great demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, they are also bound by the rope. So they are also bound by those orders, bound to follow the orders. Now another question that may come is, okay, we are glorifying about Lord Krishna, that he is the one who controls everyone, or he is the one who is the creator of everyone. Now someone may raise the question, okay, he is also bound sometimes, we see. We have the Damodar Lila pastime, and the name itself, Damodar, Dam is meant by rope, and Udar is the belly. So even Lord Krishna in that pastime, we see how he is bound by Mother Yashoda, or he is bound by the rope by Mother Yashoda. Another pastime, it comes in the Rath Yatra. So this comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that when the Rath Yatra used to happen, so we know the pastime how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to dance in front of the Yatra. So there also description comes, the Daityapatis who are there, the devotees who are responsible for lifting the Ratha or lifting the Jagannath deity. They also tie ropes across the deity, ropes of silk across the deity, and using those ropes they lift the deity and they carry the deity through. Now a general observer, a person who doesn't have knowledge, who doesn't have understanding of the Tattva, he might say, okay, Lord is also bound by the ropes, and they are carrying the deity also in ropes. In Krishna's pastimes also we see that Krishna is bound by Mother Yashoda. So how can we say that he is binding others by rope? He himself is bound by the rope. So there a very nice explanation is given. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in that pastime of Mother Yashoda binding Lord Krishna, that even though he was bound by the rope, or Lord Krishna was bound by the rope of Mother Yashoda, even then he could show the universal form in his mouth. Even then when Mother Yashoda sees his mouth, she could see the entire creation, and she fainted seeing the creation. Because Lord Krishna was the actual one who was the responsible behind the entire creation. He was always the one who is behind everything, and he was not bound by the ropes actually. He was bound by the ropes of love. It was not by the force that Mother Yashoda bound in and he could not do anything, but it was by the ropes of love that Mother Yashoda was able to bind Lord Krishna. But whereas when it comes to people in general in this world, even the atheist for that matter, Prabhupada explains that someone may say, I don't believe in the Lord, or I don't have understanding, I don't believe that Lord exists. Prabhupada explains that even those people were actually bound by the ropes. Even though the ropes may not be visible, but Lord comes in their life in form of death. Mrityu sarva harashnaham. That Lord comes in their life in the form of death and takes everything whatever they accumulate. Even though throughout their life they may not believe in God, they may not follow any rules and regulations, and they will say they are free. They are not bound by anything, they are not bound by any rules and regulations. But even those people realize at the time of death, when everything is taken away from them, then we realize that they are also bound by the stringent ropes of material nature. And when we talk of these ropes are nothing but the three gunas that are there, the ropes of these material qualities. Three guna, or Prabhupada explains in one of the lectures, these gunas are the ropes which bound a person. Just like a rope, three ropes are tied to each other to make a rope strong. Same way, these three ropes of or three material qualities that are there, that is modes of nature, that is modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, even they bind a person very, very tightly in this material world. And for a person who doesn't believe in God, who doesn't believe in the scriptures, even such a person is bound. He believes or not, but one day death comes and takes everything away, takes everything that he has been accumulating for a while. And we have so many examples. We have examples from the Shastras, like we have example of Hiranyakashipu. Now he wanted to defy the presence of Lord Vishnu. Actually, he wanted to kill Lord Vishnu. And he was not accepting that there is someone supreme than him, or he was saying that he is the supreme person who is there, he is the supreme controller. And we all know how he did tapasya throughout. He did tapasya in that ant hill, when the ant hill had been created over him. And that time when Lord Brahma was pleased by his tapasya, or Lord Brahma was forced to come there, that time also he asked that I want to become immortal. That time that was the desire of Hiranyakashipu, because he wanted to defy the orders of Lord Vishnu, or he wanted to defy the supremacy of Lord Vishnu. And that time Brahma also says that even I am not immortal, how can I make you immortal? But still Hiranyakashipu couldn't understand that there is some supreme power over him. Still he thought, okay, I'll take so many benedictions, I'll take this benediction, I'll not die in the day, in the night, on the floor or in the sky, and so many benedictions he took, thinking that he can defy the supremacy, thinking that he can become immortal. And it's described during his reign, he created many rules and regulations which were just opposite to the rules and regulations of the Supreme Lord. Just like we know those who do austerities in this planet, Shastras say they are supposed to go to higher planets. And those who do sinful activities, they are supposed to go in the lower planets. Now this personality, Hiranyakashipu, he was so demoniac, he reversed the rules and regulations. Just to create or just to pull down the positions of these people who are engaged in austerities, he made the rule that these people will go to the lower planetary systems, and those who are doing sinful activities, they will go in the higher planetary systems. And he could do that because he was very, very powerful. He had been given that benediction by Lord Brahma, and he could create all these, he could do these arrangements also. But even at the end, we see such a great personality who wanted to defy the supremacy of the Supreme Lord, who wanted to create just the opposite rules and regulations. Just as when Lord appears in the form of Narasimhadev and tears his chest, and everything is taken away from him. Or everything is lost immediately, within few moments, everything is lost. And this is how we see that even a person who is a so-claimed atheist who wants to defy the supremacy of the Supreme Lord, even he is bound by the ropes, bound by the stringent ropes of material nature, or he is bound by these ropes. And even Prabhupada used to give many examples. He used to give the example of Mahatma Gandhi. He used to talk about Gandhi, how he used to preach about so many things, about non-violence, this and that. And finally, when Prabhupada wrote him a letter that time to actually leave all this, leave politics and join this movement and assist in this preaching the message of the Bhagavad Gita. But Mahatma Gandhi didn't respond much. He was not at all eager in that. He was engaged in his activities. And how one day death came for that person who preached non-violence throughout his life, and one day violence happened and everything was taken away. So many contemporary examples we see how people who defied the orders of the Supreme, who didn't follow the orders of the Supreme, even for them everything was taken away or everything was taken away in just one moment in the form of death. And that is what Prahlad Maharaj speaks in the shloka. That is what Prahlad Maharaj, when Hiranyakashipu asked about this, that what is the best thing you have learned, that time Prahlad Maharaj starts preaching to his father himself. And that time he speaks about that how everyone is baddha, or everyone is bound by these ropes in this world. So that famous shloka we know, Nate vidyu swarth gatim hi Vishnu, durashara e bahirartha mahinina, andha yathander upaniya manes, te pisha tantram urudamni baddha. So now here Prahlad Maharaj is telling his father that people in this world, they are strongly bound by these ropes of material quality, and that's why they are just engaged in so-called materialistic activities. Because they do not know what is their ultimate self-interest. Nate vidu swarth gatim hi Vishnu. They do not know what is their self-interest, and even they themselves do not know, and they are following those people who also do not know. Andha yatandir, that even the leaders who are leading them, they are also blind to the self-interest, and these people, they are also blind. And that's why the leaders, they are falling into the ditch, or they are paving their path for destruction. And even the so-called followers who are there, people who are following such people, they are also paving the path for their destruction, because they do not know that ultimate purpose of life is to engage in devotional service. Our ultimate purpose is to engage in the service of Lord Vishnu, not to engage in the sense objects. And there he says that these personalities of who are there, these materially attached men who are there, they are strongly bound by these urudamni baddha, or by these ropes of fruitive labor. They are engaged in all these fruitive activities, they are engaged in varieties of activities in this world, and they are strongly bound by these ropes. And that is the reason, because they are being led by these personalities who are also bound, they are not able to realize what is the goal of life, or what is the purpose of life. And that is the reason they are suffering. They are suffering the threefold miseries. None of them people can say that they are out of the threefold miseries, or they are not suffering the threefold miseries. So the point we are trying to understand, anyone in this world, a person may proclaim, or the atheist may proclaim, oh, we are not under the stringent laws of material nature, we are not bound by this. But anyone in this world, for that matter, is bound by these laws of material nature. Even when it comes to great demons like Hiranyakashipu, or so-called people of this age, so many personalities of this age, or so-called atheists, but everyone is bound by the laws of nature, and everyone is suffering the threefold miseries again and again. Everyone is suffering the threefold miseries that are there. And Prabhupada gives many such examples. Prabhupada used to give the example of Julius Caesar. Like, he was a great king, he used to defeat the enemies who were there like anything. But then he was also defeated just because he became attached to one woman. But just because in that pastime, how he became attached to one woman, one very beautiful woman, and that woman bound him by the ropes of affection. And because of that bondage, he was also defeated, he was also killed by his enemies. So same way he says that anyone in this world is bound, and those ropes may be different for every person. The bondage or the attachment may be different for every person, but a materialistic person is definitely bound by these ropes of material nature. Depending on the mode he is in, he may be bound by different sense objects. But everyone in this world is bound. So now this we see for the nature of the atheist who is there, that everyone, all the atheists we see, they are also bound by these laws of, they are also bound by the laws of nature. They may accept it or not. Now, when it comes to those who are dharmic in nature, we have discussed the different levels of living entities. One are the ones who are completely sinful. Then they are above them are the ones who are who are pious. And then others above them are the ones who come in the Vedic fold. Who they may not be devotees, but still they follow the Vedic rules and regulations. We speak about Karma Yoga, people who are practicing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and different ladders which are there. So now what about these people? Are they bound or not? So that is given that even they are bound. So again, very amazing shloka from the Bhagavatam itself, which speaks about Yatha Gavo Nati Protas Tantyam Baddhascha Damabhi. So the example is given of a cow. Just like a cow is bound by a rope, sometimes we see cow is tied to a rope in the center, and cow cannot move about anywhere else. It has to move in that boundary, or it has to move in that limited location. Similarly, the examples is given just like that. All the human beings in this world, or all the living entities, of course human form of life we are talking of, they are also bound by the Vedic injunctions. They are also bound by these Vedic injunctions which are being given, or which are the orders of the Supreme. So first we talk about those who are atheists, who don't believe in the Vedas. Even they are bound, and Lord comes in the form of death and takes everything away. Now for those who follow the real rules and regulations, they are also bound by these Vedic injunctions. Basically they also are conditioned, they also have to follow these rules and regulations. And the example of just like a cow is bound by this rope, these people are also bound. And Prabhupada explains about this, just like man-made laws are there. So many laws in the world, so many governments, so many countries create different laws. And a person living in that country has to follow those laws. There is no option for him. Same way these personalities, or same way the human beings that are there, they have to follow the laws of Vedic injunctions. And if they don't follow, if they don't agree to follow these laws, naturally they will go more and more down in the cycle, in the evolutionary cycle. Naturally they will be degraded in the next life. If they degrade, if they don't abide by the laws of Vedic injunctions. So these people are also bound by these laws of the Supreme, and no one can escape these laws. Someone can escape the man-made laws, they can get out through some means, but these laws no one can escape. So we see here that even the dharmic personalities who are there, they are also bound by the ropes of material nature, or they also have to follow these rules and regulations. And now when we are talking of this verse, here it's given that even the great demigods, what to speak about these personalities, even great demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, even they are tied by the ropes of material nature, or they are also tied just like a bird is tied by a rope, or they are also tied by the rules and regulations of this material world. They also cannot progress, or they also cannot transgress the Vedic rules and regulations that are there. They are also bound by these rules of regulations. So now when it comes to all these personalities, we saw the atheists who are there, we saw the people who are dharmic, and then we saw these great demigods who are there. Everyone is bound by the rules and regulations. Now when we talk of all these personalities, now let's talk of those who are practicing devotional service, or let's talk about pure devotees who are there. So when we speak of pure devotees, the question that comes is, are they also bound by these rules and regulations, or are they also bound by these ropes just like these personalities or not? So there we can understand through multiple examples that we can say, yeah, yes, they are also bound. But then there is a difference. And many times we have heard many examples regarding this difference. Just like we give the example of cat and the kitten. A cat is keeping a kitten in her mouth, and same cat is keeping even the mouse in her mouth. Now both are placed in her mouth, both are bound there, but then the mouse knows that at any moment I can be bitten and I can be eaten, swallowed up by this cat. I can die at any moment. But the kitten in the mouth of the cat is very, very fearless. It is not at all concerned because it knows that she is my mother and no harm will be done to me. And same way, both may appear bound, but still the kitten is completely fearless. Same way, when it comes to where the example is given of those who take the shelter of the Supreme Lord, or those who have completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord, they are also bound by the they are also bound by the ropes, but they are bound by the ropes of love. Just like we can give the example of a prisoner. Prabhupada gives the example of a prisoner. He may also stay in a prison, but he is forced to stay in the prison. But some personality who may be coming to inspect the prison house, or some personality who may come to inspect there, he is not forced to stay there. He comes there by his own will. Same way, a pure devotee who is there, he himself becomes surrendered to the Supreme Lord, and he wants to do things out of love for the Supreme Lord. He himself voluntarily wants to get bound by the rules and regulations of the Supreme Lord, or engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord. And this personality, or this state, we can see in the personality of Srila Prabhupada himself. How he did so many things just to fulfill the orders of his spiritual master, just to fulfill the orders of the Supreme Lord. And one of the very amazing prayers he wrote when he was traveling in the West, the Markina Bhagavad Dharma, where he writes these lines, where he says, Nachao Prabhu, nachao se mate, kashtera putali jata, nachao se mate. So he also says that just like a puppet who is bound by the rules and regulations, or just like a puppet who is there, who is completely attached to the person who is holding the puppet, who is holding the ropes. Just like that, he also says that you also bound me, or you also make me do whatever, you make me dance as and whatever you want. But then the difference we see, these are ropes of love. He is also bound to everything which the Lord wants, but he voluntarily wants to surrender to the Supreme Lord and act as a puppet in the hands of the Supreme Lord. And that is why when it comes to the pure devotees, they do not suffer the threefold miseries. When we discussed in the previous classes also, when it comes to all these other people, they are also bound by the ropes of this material world. They are also bound by these three kleshas which are there. But they are forced to undergo these threefold miseries. They are forced to undergo these different kleshas that are there. But a pure devotee who voluntarily surrenders to the Supreme Lord, who does everything just to execute the will of the Supreme Lord, someone may say he is also bound by the rules or regulations, he is also bound by those, but he does not undergo the threefold miseries. Whatever he does, because it's a desire of the Lord, Lord becomes pleased by that, and naturally the devotee also becomes very, very blissful and satisfied by that. So he does not get bound by the ropes of the Supreme Lord. And that is why when it comes to this verse, when you talk of the example that is given, that the owner of a bird controls it by binding it with a rope, and the example of the demigods, But here, when it comes to the pure devotees, the nature of them is that they themselves voluntarily become attached to the orders to the Supreme Lord, attached to executing the instructions of the Supreme Lord, and that is why their surrender or their being bound by the laws of the Supreme Lord is different from this bondage. They are not forced to accept the orders of the Supreme Lord, whether they willingly accept those orders and they become more and more blissful and happy in those things. And same way we can think this for ourselves also. When we are practicing devotional service, the more we surrender to the will of the Supreme Lord, the more we follow the instructions of the Supreme Lord, the more the bondage we are there in this material world, the bondage of these three gunas, the more we take shelter of the Supreme Lord, more will go above the bondage of these three gunas. And more will come directly under the Yog Maya or the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Devi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mam Eva Ye Prapadyante Mayam Etam Tarantite. That everyone in this world is controlled by this Maya, but then the choice is which Maya we want to be controlled by, whether we want to be controlled by the Mahamaya of the Lord, or whether a person surrenders to the Supreme Lord and wants to be controlled by the Yog Maya of the Supreme Lord. Both the Mayas will control the person, but if one person is under the influence of the internal potency of the Yog Maya of the Lord, naturally he'll be above the, or he will not get the threefold miseries that are there. He'll be above that, and whatever he does for the will of the Supreme Lord, he'll be blissful in that, he'll be satisfied in that. But when it comes to these people who are atheists or who are so-called non-followers of the Vedic Dharma, they also think that they will be free from the bondage, but externally they might think, or they may be under that illusion, but then they'll be forced to suffer these miseries, life after life, and go in the degrade more themselves in the lower and lower species of life. And that is why to such a great personality, that's why even Lord Shiva in his prayers he offered, that therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto this Supreme Being. Unto this great personality who creates everyone, who is responsible for all those personality, who is responsible for all the creation, maintenance and annihilation, I offer my obeisances to such a personality. And we have discussed that verse again from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ekala Ishta Krishna Arasa Pritya. That all other personalities who are there are his servants. Those who accepts to be his servant, those who accept to voluntarily serve him, they are the ones who are blissful and they are the ones who get a chance to go back to Godhead. But those who defy his orders, they are the ones who get stuck in this material world and undergo all these kleshas life after life. Okay, thank you very much. So with this I would like to pause here. And we can take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much for the nice class. I think this topic was being discussed, but I'm not clarified on this. Pure devotees, that they are not affected. From on the bodily platform, they are suffering. Please clarify this.
Body platform.
Yes, suffering.
But those sufferings are not affecting. Means externally we might see that they are suffering, but because they are completely engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, so even in that state they are blissful. And this we can see that in the lives of the acharyas and great personalities who are there, that even after so much suffering, even after so many things that are there, they are continuing to execute the different limbs of devotional service very blissfully, very happily. And only reason we can understand why they are still continuing even after so much suffering, so much misery, is because they are internally blissful, or they are not at all affected by the bodily miseries which are there. But when it comes to, for us, we always see them, we'll see that they are suffering, or we have to assist them, or we have to do whatever we can to serve them. But internally what we understand, that they are not affected by all these things. That is what my understanding.
Example is His Holiness Jayapataka Swami. So he's one video I mentioned that I'm always blissful.
She's really Krishna. Thank you. Such a wonderful class. Very nicely told how that everything in this material world, everything is controlled by Krishna. So coming from sinful people, atheists, to sadhakas, even to the pure devotees, everyone are controlled. But for the pure devotees, that control is like a cat catching a kitten. And for the non-devotees, it is cat catching or holding the mouse. So both are different. At this point, we can predict the more we surrender
it's our choice whether we surrender to Yogmaya or Mahamaya. According to our surrender, so the process works. Yogmaya takes control of us, and if we're not affected by the three modes of materialism. So we have to surrender to Lord with faith.
Thank you very much for this nice classroom. So this point you nicely highlighted that no one can transgress the laws which are given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, be it sinful person, be it dharmic person, be it demigods, or be it even devotees. So, but there is a small difference between bondage of other people and devotees, because devotees voluntarily they want to come under the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They willingly come under Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore they do not suffer the threefold miseries. Whereas the other people who are not devotees, they are forced to suffer these threefold miseries.
Thank you, sir. I like these points that everybody is bound by three modes, and even like Brahma, Lord Shiva, they are also praying that only by the mercy of Lord we are able to do our duty of creation and to create against destruction. And that even the great Prajapatis of the entire universe, even Balramji, Lakshmiji, Shiva, everybody is carrying dust of lotus feet of Lord on their head. So in six Astakams, we place me as a dust of lotus feet. Our aspirations are very high. Thank you for saying.
Anta Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Shri Prabhupada.